She had planned it all out perfectly. Her parents thought she was spending a few days with a friend across town, but she had actually left town for spring break in South Carolina, 13 hours away. She figured she'd be back before they ever knew the truth, but 3 days later, she vanished. A security camera caught her leaving a resort, but there was no trace of the girl herself. Her family searched tirelessly, but they could find no clues as to her whereabouts. And then, more than a decade later, her body was found in a shallow grave in the woods. And we finally know what happened to Brittanee Drexel on that fateful night. One thing is certain, she should have never gone alone. Let's go back to April 2009 in Rochester, New York. Now, Brittanee's world was full of soccer games, her boyfriend, and a future where she was either a cosmetologist or a nurse. And she didn't know exactly what she wanted to be, but she had time to figure it out. Everything was bright and shiny, and the most dangerous thing she could imagine was sneaking out of the house. And she was 17 and desperately wanted to join her friends for a spring break trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But her mom said no. No adults were going to be there, and she didn't really know the girls she'd be going with, and she just had a bad feeling about it. They argued, but her mom put her foot down. Unfortunately, that's not the end of the story. Brittanee came up with an elaborate plot to get out of the house, and she got permission to go to a friend's house for a few nights. She said she wanted to cool down after their fight. She even called home later and apologized for arguing about the spring break trip. Her mother had no idea she was actually on her way to South Carolina. 3 days later, Brittanee vanished. Now, Myrtle Beach is one of the most popular beach destinations in America. And what many people don't know is that it's also the third most dangerous city. She was last seen on April 25th, 2009. She visited a friend at the Blue Water Resort on Ocean Boulevard, the town's busy Main Street. The surveillance cameras caught her leaving around 8:45 that night. While she walked the mile and a half back to her motel, she was texting with her boyfriend. He wasn't on the trip. He was still in upstate New York. Then, all of a sudden, when she was about halfway back, she stopped responding. And she never made it back to her room. She was just gone. Just like that. And for years, there was very little confirmed information about what happened to her. Now, 7 years later, a jailhouse informant claimed she was taken to a small town 60 miles south, and that's the area where her phone pinged for the final time. And the theories about what happened to her down there were the stuff of nightmares. Rumors included everything from trafficking to being eaten by alligators, and the truth isn't any better. 13 years after she disappeared, police think they finally know what happened. 62-year-old Raymond Moody is a registered sex offender with a history of raping and kidnapping girls in California. He went to prison in the early 80s for that, and he was released in 2004. And not long after he was set free, he moved home to Georgetown, South Carolina. Myrtle Beach is an hour north. It's not clear how he got Brittanee in his car, but the police say he took her back to his hometown where he raped her, then strangled her to death near the river. Then he buried her in the woods. Back in 2009, he was living at the Sunset Lodge in Georgetown. In 2022, he allegedly confessed and led police to her body. All this time, she's been less than 3 miles away from his motel. And Brittanee might not be the only victim of his. In 2012, his name came up as a person of interest in 2 disappearances. Brittanee's and another woman's, 28-year-old Crystal Souls. Crystal was last seen in January 2005 at Shaw's Corner Store in Andrews, South Carolina, about 20 minutes outside of Georgetown. She told her family she was going to walk home, and just like Brittanee, Crystal never made it back. At least one woman thinks she knows what happened to them in those final moments. Carrie Harding was 8 years old when her path crossed Raymond Moody's. She was waiting for a friend when he pulled up next to her in his car. She tried to ignore him, but he persisted. It only took seconds to pull her off the sidewalk and shove her down to the floor while he drove away. She was one of 6 victims that sent him to a California prison in the early 80s. But they let him out after serving only about half of the 40 years he was sentenced to. If he's found guilty of murder, he could get the death penalty. And that's your recap. Thanks for watching. If you like getting all the crime in half the time, stay right there. There's another recap coming up right now.